he's also seen that the world's big and round, and he says, so what?
Tommy is right, you know, Ada. We are flying above the rules now.
We're bold people, aren't we, Polly?
That's the beauty.
Speaking about kind of a tricky topic on this day, but a vital one, and probably, I would say maybe the biggest, literally and spiritually, the biggest downfall of original people from the beginning is what we're going to be building on. All right, so it's an important one, even though it's a very elusive one. So what we're going to be building on is the spirit of pride. Okay, and we're going to come out of a couple of texts here, and I'll be giving them to you. I'll be reading them and also giving them to you as we're going through them. All right, so you'll be able to kind of reference as we go, right? And we'll begin just with the idea of there's a Babylonian, or and when I say Babylonian, I'm speaking about current modern day idea in the secular world of what pride is and the value of pride. And then of course there's what we could call a righteous definition of the same idea of pride. Okay, so from a secular perspective, when you look at the concept of pride is treasured because of its ability to, in many senses, distinguish a leader, right? So a lot of times pride is considered somewhat as kind of an extrovertic sort of quality, and that whether a person kind of knows something or not, the pride is shown because of their congruency with society. You know, so if I'm able to live by what society says the standards are that I should live by, and what it is that I should achieve, what it is that I should accomplish, and what it is that I should be happy about, then I have a reason to be proudful, right? So universally, just from a physical perspective, pride is always pretty much displayed the same way. You know, straighter spine, chest out, right? Now that's any culture you go to. It's not just a Western thing. That's how pride is typically, you know, kind of projected. You know, there's a smile, one's back is curved a little bit, right? So again, the idea there is pride is a good thing if one is proud of how they've been able to align themselves with social values, right? So whether those social values are injurious or whether they're beneficial to the one that's displaying the pride, regardless of which one, it's still considered to be a way that we can encourage leadership in the individual, right? So that's more of a secular perspective, right? Very, very general one. We try to instill it in children as well, for recognition purposes. You know, children who tend to hold a little bit more self-pride tend to be recognized a bit quicker, just like leaders. You know, those who are proudful are recognized, again, whether they know what they're doing or not. And of course, I'm covering this definition first or this idea, this concept of pride from a secular perspective first, because for many of us, that's where we fall in victim. You know, from our perspective of it, from a secular perspective, a lot of us have never even touched the spiritual perspective of pride, and really don't want to because of how disruptive and intrusive it is to the secular mindset. You know, we see ourselves as important when we're able to kind of tap into theories and ideas of pride. So self-importance is something that we always encourage in ourselves and children, so forth and so on. Now, there's another aspect of pride, even from a secular perspective, that we want to touch upon, and that's the aspect of self-aggrandizing. You know, when pride becomes hubris. And I see furrowed brows. Hubris. Hubris. Okay, so hubris is really a part of it's an idea, we could say, of just kind of aggrandizing yourself, but kind of having a pride that you take on without any real merit. To the point that you become arrogant. The key is there is unmerited pride. Okay. For anyone who, anyone wants, deeper understanding on the idea of hubris. Okay. So with that being said, most of the times when you see that level of hubris or arrogance is because you're dealing with a wounded narcissist. When you have that narcissistic personality and it becomes wounded, then now one seeks to overcompensate through methods of, again, aggrandizing themselves beyond what is reasonable, which is really what pride is every time. But we'll get into why that is every time. Now, the idea with that, we'll call that the flip side of, or the other polar of secular pride, where the positive aspect is, leadership and children just wanting to be recognized by their parents, things like that, or maybe even being able to align yourself and be congruent with social values. The more, the polar, I don't want to say negative, but the polar opposite of that would be one who seeks to aggrandize themselves, not because they want to feel good, but because they want to avoid feeling bad. That's the key. So a lot of times with that type of mentality and that perspective, they tend to take on more of a victim mentality more often than not. Anything to avoid conviction, anything to avoid feeling bad. Now that's the deeper part of what we're dealing with. Now, again, the idea of hubris, how it connects to that. I'll use the word again. I'm gonna use it a couple times to, so it becomes a part of your vernacular, not, that's for anybody who just furrowed their brow. So, I would say a great example of that, I guess, in political times now, where people's perspective is of like a Donald Trump. But he's not the only one, but someone who aggrandizes themselves beyond their own accomplishments. And whenever you question them about those accomplishments, they become very aggressive. Okay. Now, he's not the only one. I mean, again, there are many scam artists in the cultural community that whenever they're asked about their scams, they get loud and aggressive. I've seen that with pretty much all of them. They all do the same thing. They'll start calling people coons. They'll start calling them agents. They'll start calling them sellouts. All kind of different things. Well, you don't ask other people like this, but whenever we try to do our own thing, and whenever we always tearing each other down, they start with that mess. That's a sign of hubris. Okay, that's someone who has merited themselves beyond what they've actually achieved. And it's a shaky foundation. So when you start asking questions, they now have to respond very aggressively. Okay. Now I just use Donald Trump as the example because, and I don't personally particularly imagine that he's that way, even though people say it, but, that's how people perceive him. So that's why I'm using him as the example. I think he has a different sort of, characteristic with him. So let's get into the idea of pride for a second, because again, it's all centered around, a falsely assumed pride, right? And one of the reasons why I say for original people, this has been our greatest downfall is because, pride causes you to forget. If you look at Islam, pride is considered one of the worst sins ever. You know, it said that a person with one atom's weight of pride inside of them will never enter into paradise. You know, so you consider that, you know, how serious pride is taken. In some sects, they will tell you that pride is the greatest sin. And in some sects, they will tell you that pride is the third greatest sin, right? So whether you're going from first greatest or third greatest, obviously it's pretty high up there in relationship to all the different things that you could actually be or do. If you consider Christian lore, you have the idea of pride, whether you look at, you know, the Tower of Babel, or you look at the fall of Lucifer. It's still the idea of pride that was present. And I want you to think about the fall. The fall is the important aspect in what I'm saying here. All right. So just write the word fall, highlight it. So, you know, the idea of pride, it's even when you look at the word pride, you see PR in there. There's a prefix, you know, the idea of pride is a recognition of self before recognition has been, or before you've been recognized. Right. So in order to do that, you raise yourself up higher than you currently are, or you currently are supposed to be. Now, when you look at different scriptures, you'll see the word haughtiness often mentioned. Now, the reason being is because haughty, by straight definition, means high. Okay, so to be haughty is to raise yourself up, is to elevate yourself, right? Which again is one of the greatest sins, to raise yourself. Now, I know that's tricky, because a lot of times when we think about elevation and ascension, we look at it as it's a good thing. But if you kind of think about it, within a lot of cultural communities, we never speak about where we're ascending to. We just say, I'm raising my vibration. To where and to what? You know, and of course I'm raising it, and nothing is helping to build it up. Nothing is lofting it up for me. You know, that's a very important thing when you think about the idea of sometimes what creates pride. Sometimes it's having advocates, it's having supporters, it's having fans. And yes, fans is, you know, it's short for fanatic. But if you think about that for a second, it's simple. Fan, you know the word fan. Fan does what? It moves and pushes air. Well, if someone were to move and push air underneath you, what would it do? It would lift you up higher. So sometimes the idea of having, you know, back in the days we used to say, you know, somebody's gassing you up or gassing your head up, you know, but it's the same idea. Someone is putting, you know, blowing smoke up your behind and causing you to become haughty. You know, the root word of that is haught, you know, and again, when you see the word haught, you notice it's similar to the word height. You know, again, trying to raise yourself above your station without proper recognition. So I want to get into I'll get into the Islamic perspective for a second. Whoa, 1 second. Okay. Yeah, so let me get into the Islamic perspective for a second. And this particular example is not much different than what you would find in Hebraic perspective, but just slightly different, right? So, you know, when we think about the creation of man, whether you're looking at it in Islam or you're looking at it in the Torah, there's this concept of man being made out of earth material. So in Islam, in the Quran, we are told that man is made from clay, and at least man's body is made from clay, and the Torah, we're told red earth, you know, or Adumu, right, or Aduma, but regardless, earth. But more specifically, red earth is actually clay. So we could say clay on both sides if we really wanted to, but which is significant because there's a reference to moisture with clay. But nonetheless, the concept there is being made of earth. It's in Islam, it is said that, you know, Iblis, or who some of you may call the adversary, right, would use that term. It may be more familiar to you. He first, you know, he was disgruntled because he was saying, you know, why is it that I would have to serve this this golem, basically, you know, this golem made of dirt and I'm made of fire. You know, like, you fashioned me from fire and you fashioned this one over here from soil. You know, it's not fair that I would have to serve this one when clearly I am the superior being, you know? So there's an idea there, and there's so much more to that, because, man actually does have fire within man, you know, which is a separate part of it. You know, when you look at animals and then you look at, what you would call angels, and then you look at man, what you're looking at in terms of man is a pulling and a combination of the animal and the angel. You know, so there's a crossroad that exists within man, you know, whereas when you're looking at an angelic energy or an animalistic energy, you're looking at two polarities of a particular thing, and man is the encapsulation of both polarities. But that's not really what this is about so much, so don't worry about that. So when Iblis says this to Allah, you know, Allah says, you know, I love not the proud and I love not the arrogant, and removes him, you know, or it, but removes Iblis from what you would call heaven, right? Very similar again to the story of Lucifer and Lucifer's rants about what I will do, and him saying that I will ascend above your throne, right? So again, it's the idea of height. It's the idea of going higher there again. Even when you think about fire and the property of fire and the fact that fire raises up, even the air around it, it raises it up. You know, the idea of getting height, haughtiness, height, right? So he gets removed. Now, in Islam, you know, we're taught different forms of pride, and pride is a very central point and very central theme, because again, it being such an important thing. If you think about something that was so serious that would have gotten an angel kicked out of heaven, you know, you can imagine that it's something that, and in Allah saying, I don't even love those who are prideful. I don't even love those who are arrogant, right? So you think about something that has the potential to remove you from the originator's sphere of love is pride, right? Now, pride, if you look in certain communities, they use the term pride, certain communities in this world, in particular, the Anglosphere or Western culture, they use the term pride to speak about where they are emotionally, what they felt like doing. They place pride on the back of that, right? And for some communities, what they feel like doing is an exact reversal of what the Creator has already done. And then they slap the term pride on the back of it, on top of that, you know, an extra stick in the eye, you know. And for some of us, we may look at that and we'll say, okay, well, everyone should be proud of what they're doing and what they're about. So I'm going to be proud of my stuff, you know, whether it's racial pride, whether it's I'm proud of the city I'm from, I'm proud of the family, whatever. But we start to take on those models and those examples and say, well, yeah, it sounds innocent enough. So I want some of that too, right? But Allah has said that he does not love the proud. You see, he kicked people out of heaven for doing that. So in doing that and in following that motif and that pattern, we are literally removing ourselves from paradise. When you wonder why so many kingdoms have fallen, kingdoms of original people, one of the reasons that you know that these kingdoms even existed is because of the great works, the great monuments that they've built, the wonderful displays and feats of magic and technology that they performed. And a lot of times, well, every time what happened was they got so wrapped up in what they were doing that they became so proudful of that they fell from grace. You see? So there's a pride that we speak about in Islam when one considers themselves to be better than others. That's a form of pride. You know, when you deem yourself to be higher than another person. Very common for spiritual people. You know, you start to look at people who are not invested spiritually as beneath you. You know, very common thing around this season. You know, we want to rush and run to put up postings about how we're not celebrating certain things. And you must be a certain sort of person if you do celebrate certain things or you eat certain things, or how could you not know that this is really not the new year right now, you know? And that's a form of pride. You know, everyone is grasping and growing in their time and in their level, right? And some people ain't growing. Some people going to hell. Some people are in hell and they ain't gonna get out of hell. They're gonna stay in hell forever. Okay, that's another part of it. But it doesn't mean that you're any better than them. You just hit a lick. That's all. Sometimes you hit a lick. You walking down the street, somebody drops 100. You don't see who dropped it. Nobody's claiming it. You got $100. You hit a lick. That's all you did. You didn't do nothing special. You know, like I've said so many times, the only thing we really deserve is death. Think about the laws that we've already broken before coming into the truth. We should have been dead already then, based upon that. But we're under grace, right? So that's one form of pride that we speak about in Islam. You know, the idea of holding yourself better than another because of whatever reason. Maybe you have more education than that person has. You make more money than they do. You eat better than they do. You have a spiritual practice and they don't have a spiritual practice, so forth and so on, right? Then there's the arrogance of pride when we're scornful towards others. That's another pride. And that scornfulness often comes out of a boisterous kind of nature. You know, that's a second form of pride. Despite sometimes that also comes from the idea of what we may have achieved. And there's a humility that has to be in place despite what we've achieved, right? So if you think about you think about Prophet Muhammad, and you think about the service that he did for others without contempt, without scorn, despite understanding and knowing the position and station that he had on the planet. You know, it's like when you hear me say sometimes men in the family are the biggest servants of that family. They're the boss, but they're the biggest servant. You see? So that's when you're able to move without contempt, able to move without scorn, regardless of how people may treat you. Because even as being a boss and being the biggest servant, a lot of times you're overlooked and you're disregarded by your family as a man. And that can build a certain level of resentment. That can build a certain level of scornfulness. And that's a form of pride. That resent that you may hold, you know. There's a third form of pride that these like the three major forms that we speak about in Islam, and that's the pride of lineage. You know, sometimes people have this kind of thought where, you know, my name, like Marlo Stansfield said in The Wire, my name is my name, and sometimes because of where we come from or who we come from, we begin to deem ourselves better than another. This is very common as a form of overcompensating for those who are original people. We start to look at our lineage. We figure out that, we're the Israelite nation. It's us. We start to figure out the greatness that exists within our line. And I'm going to get into our line for a minute. We're going to go there next. And we start to become proud of that. That's where that racial pride comes in. That's a sin. That's disobedience against the Most High. Because for everything, and I've often said it about original people, much to others' chagrin, but whatever it is that you may be proud about as an original person, I could cite 100 to 200 things that you could be ashamed about. Because most of the things that we pride ourselves in, we either no longer do or we can't even capitalize on ourselves. So there's a balance there. And, when you're able to pull back and look at things objectively and you start bragging about who you are and what you've done, there's some very simple questions I can ask. And that's when you get to the hubris. We go back to that again. When someone says something like, when you say, I'm an African, I'm a proud African. And then someone says, well, Africans sold each other into slavery. What's your reaction typically? Usually it's pretty hostile, right? Instead of really pulling back and thinking about, is there some truth to that statement? Now, of course, those of us who know the lineage, we know that Africans didn't sell Africans. Africans sold Hebrews, so it's not the same. And Africans didn't sell Hebrews. Yoruba people sold Hebrews. Akan people sold Hebrews. We got to get out of that they thing. You know what they doing. Instead of they, just say who it is. The American government is doing it to you. What they about to do, they about to chip us all. It's not they, it's the American government. They're about to chip you. Okay. So when you start to get out of that thing, you start to look at things more objectively, then you get a better sense of, should I be prideful about this thing or not? Chances are you shouldn't be. Again, when you look at the danger of pride, and here's the key thing. Pride prevents you from seeking knowledge. Right? You become a know-it-all. Yeah, I did that already. I know that already. I experienced that. I heard that before. You don't hear anything twice. You can't step in the same river twice. You hear nothing twice. If I made the same statement 10 minutes from now that I made just now, it wouldn't be the same thing. If you wrote the note now, you better write it 10 minutes from now, because you're not the same person 10 minutes from now. The things that I would have said in between that time and the time and the chronology that would have passed should have changed you to the point that now you can receive it different. But your pride tells you, I already know that. You see, big issue. That's probably one of the biggest dangers, because in order to obtain true knowledge from the originator, from Allah, you have to accept everything like it's new. Sometimes you hear me say things like, live each day like it's your first. And I know people say, live today like it's your last. No, live it like it's your first. Because on your first day, you were full of wonder. You didn't claim to know everything. You had no pride in anything, because you had no social references to say, well, I did this, I did that, I did that, I did that. All things that society told me to do. You didn't have any of that. You just had vulnerability, openness, and wonderment. And when you begin to lose that, you fall from grace. You fall from paradise, from what was already lifting you up. Not understanding that the Creator is your fan. The Creator is rooting for you. So that's what's raising you to another height. But when you start to imagine that you're above and beyond the experiences and the wisdom that the Creator has given to you, Creator says, all right, well, I don't love you. I'm not a fan of you. I don't love the proud and arrogant. What happens then? Well, what was raising you up in the air is now gone, and what's going to happen? You're going to fall. you're going to fall from grace. You see why I told you the fall part is so important, right? So there's so many different ways, especially in the culture community, that it happens, and it's really tricky. So when we read Proverbs 26:12, do you see a man who is wise in his own eyes? There is more hope for a fool than for him. You think about that scripture. One of the worst things that you could possibly call a person based on Hebraic code is a fool. Because the word fool, it translates into vanity or vain fellow. It means that whatever they're doing in their life is a complete waste of time. But you're telling me that I have more hope for someone who's living a total fantasy. The Creator has more hope in them than someone who is proud. You find, sadly, most of the time, unfortunately, arrogant people don't really change. They're kind of like disrespectful people. It's very difficult to be disrespectful one year and not be disrespectful the next year. Unless what you're truly doing, you truly don't know what you're doing. Which is rare. People usually lie. I had no idea. I didn't realize I was being, you knew. But it's truly difficult to reverse the conditions of disrespect, selfishness. You find children who with selfishness become selfish adults. And it's the same thing with pride. It's a very difficult nut to crack. It's very difficult. Because it's addictive. It feels good to kind of feel like you know more than other people. And like I said, most of the time that wounded narcissist personality, it's engaged because it doesn't want to feel bad. It's not looking for highs. You can find highs a lot of different places, but it's looking to not feel bad. It's looking for it to not confront itself. We're going to get into that in a second. When you read 2 Timothy 3:1, but understandeth this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty. For people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, and unholy. You see? So what that's speaking about is a time when people will be making decisions for themselves based on their emotions and not from what we call Ifa, but not from the words of the Creator. Or as, some people say, the word of God, the word of Yah. They'll be making decisions based on how they feel, right? So often you'll speak to people and you'll try to teach them something and they say, well, I know me. I know how I feel. I feel like this. I feel like that. Or I feel like you're saying this. I feel like you're saying that. Everything is based upon the feeling and not upon the structural reference of what the word says. These people are doomed. They're lost. They're gone. They're toast. They're gone. When you're basing your decisions upon that, a lot of times you can cite a person like that because one of the things that they often want to do is be seen. So they'll start building platforms just to be seen. You see, whether it's, today it's social media channels. I'm going to build a channel. I'm going to have this site so I can take pictures. You can see me from this angle, see me from that angle, see me thinking, see me upset, see me laughing. You know what I mean? This is what I look like when I'm eating. This is what I look like when I'm drinking. You know what I mean? When I'm looking out the window. This is what I look like when I'm driving. It's just different ways that I can be seen, right? That's just proud. That's just pride, and one of the key things you'll find is some of this we have to check within ourselves. A lot of times a proudful person, they become very frustrated with people who don't recognize their gifts in the way that they want them to be recognized and in the time that they want them to be recognized. You see, I'm an excellent speaker. I'm an excellent dresser. I'm a great singer. I'm a great dancer. And I want you to appreciate me in the fashion that I picture and see it. And when that doesn't happen, I become frustrated. You see, then I'll even get on my platform and they hating on me. They hating on me. Look, I put this out. I put that out. I was the first one to do this. I was the first one to do that. And, they're basically like the mad rapper. Nobody's respecting me. Basically, I was the first to do it. I was the first to say that. I started saying peace. I was the first one to say peace. They're not giving me my respect. You see, that's a serious one, because a lot of times amongst those who call themselves believers, it's rampant. Especially as original people, we all come with we're very talented. We come with a lot of talents. And instead of allowing the creator to exploit those talents in due season and in the creator's manner, we want it recognized right now, especially if we look over to the left and we see someone else with a similar talent. And we might feel, well, I'm better at that than them. Why are you not looking at me? And like I've spoken about before, sometimes it's just not your season. But a prideful person is not trying to hear that. Prideful person adds one ear and out the other. I want it, and I want it now, and I want everybody to know that I'm cute, or I'm handsome, or I got big knockers, or whatever it is you feel that the Most High has granted you with. I want it to be recognized for it now. You see, even though, and this is where I say a lot of times your ego will store itself inside of your consciousness, because you might find a person's in church or is in the masjid. And I want to sing unto the Lord. I want the solo, the choir solo. So they'll hide inside of, well, I'm doing this for the creator. You see, but the creator's, I want God to use me. You see, so that's a tricky one. Now, I'm gonna break something down in a minute, but I wanna read something, but I'll break it down later. But just so you have it. Malachi 4:1. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. Okay, just hold that for a second. I'm going to come back and I'm going to give you something for that. I also want you to mark down Leviticus 26 and 40. I didn't give you the Quranic verses. I may give those to you later. But I want to follow this thought for a second. Okay. But Leviticus, 26 and 40. All right. Matter of fact, I'm going to start at 39. And they that are left of you shall pine away in their iniquity in your enemies' lands. Sound like somebody you know? And also in the iniquities of their fathers shall they pine away with them. If they shall confess their iniquity and the iniquity of their fathers with their trespass, which they trespass against me, and that also they have walked contrary unto me. Sound even more familiar? And that I also have walked contrary unto them. You don't mess with me, I don't mess with you. F you too. And have brought them into the land of their enemies. If then their uncircumcised hearts be humbled, and they then accept of their punishment of their iniquity, then will I remember my covenant with Jacob, and also my covenant with Isaac, and also, or Isaac, and also my covenant with Abraham will I remember, and I will remember the land. Okay? Critical verse. Why? I'm sure in the culture community, and I've actually seen the meme go up a couple of times where people say things like, I'm out here breaking generational curses. Right? That's like a common thing that's said. I'm breaking generational curses. Most people ain't breaking no generational curses. I'm going to show you why. I don't mean to laugh because it's bad, but why? I guess there's no but to that. I shouldn't laugh. But generational curses is what this scripture is talking about. I'm gonna show you. If they shall confess their iniquity, right? That's our issue. Our healing that's necessary. Confess it. Be honest about it, right? How often do we end up in situations where we're called out on our BS and then we start tap dancing? We don't confess it. Or we give a weak confession. Well, I'm sorry if you felt that way. We give unapologetic apologies. I didn't realize I was doing that, but if it's this, then, this, that, and the third. You know what I mean? Well, tell me why you feel that way when you call somebody out. There's a whole bunch of them. I was going to do a whole segment on fake apologies. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But, it's important because sometimes people can get caught in that. You might get a fake apology and not realize that you just got flim-flam. So you need to know the language of a fake apology so you can, you snatch the person back. Wait, hold on. Let's try that again. But if they confess their iniquity, here's the big one. And the iniquity of their fathers. See, you thought it was just you. The iniquities of their fathers with their trespasses, which they have trespassed against me. So not just the iniquities, but you got to be specific. How people give those apologies. Look, I'm sorry for everything. You say, well, what exactly are you referring to? Everything you talking about. You see what I'm saying? I'm sorry for everything because obviously I didn't mean for it to end up like this. They don't even know what you're talking about. They just want it over. So when he says not only the iniquities, but the trespass, tell me exactly what you did. Confess exactly what you did, right? Then he says, and that also they have walked contrary unto me, and that I also have walked contrary unto them, and have brought them into the land of their enemies. Right? So he's saying those who turn their back on righteousness, on original culture, on Islam, on our original natural way of being. So the deepness of that is this. I can come forward and I can say, I did these horrible things. I broke the law. I did this. I did that. Can I tell you what my father did? Can I tell you what my grandfather did? Because remember when I said earlier, lineage. It's in your blood. You see, if my grandfather was a sexual deviant, then the spirit of sexual deviance is inside of me. If my grandmother practiced witchcraft, then the spirit and the punishment of witchcraft is inside of me. If my mother was jealous, if my father was jealous, the spirit of jealousy is inside of me. We talk about generational curses, right? Most of the time when we think about generational curses, we just usually talking about eating better and not praying to a fake sky god. That's usually, let's be honest, that's usually what we talking about. But we're not talking about the fact that, my great grandfather was a murderer. Because that's in me now. That's my curse. You see? We want to inherit the talents, the blessings. Great grandma was pretty, I'm pretty. Great grandpa was big and diesel, I'm big and diesel. Yeah, we want all of that. And we want to talk about, I come from this kind of family. But we don't talk about what we inherit in the blood, because this is the way it works. And I want you to think about this for those of you who have abuse in your families. Once you open that door and you permit that spirit, the spirit now has rights, just like a house, right? If you have land and you deed me a piece of your land, when you die and new generations come in, I still hold the deed to that land. I have a right to be there. So if your forefathers and foremothers were accusers, they were gossipers, they were abusers, they were deviants, those spirits now have a right to your blood. You wondering why you can't get it together? You keep trying, but you can't get it together. And you think you're breaking generational curses, but the problem is you haven't been specific enough. You're just looking at stuff that maybe the family talks about a little bit, or, you know, things that you don't do anymore. Like it's the bad thing. But you have to be specific, right? Once you allow those sort of spirits to pass through your bloodline, they establish instability in you and in your offspring. So let's try it like this. My parents were, you know, Mickey and Mallory from Natural Born Killers. They were just running around killing everybody, right? But I'm a good person. I've did everything that I could to live by the Lord's statutes and commandments for my entire life. You know, then I go have a child, you know, and my children are straight hooligans. Where the heck did this come from? Because you had a spiritual energy and an essence that you already was deeded into your bloodline and had right to manifest whenever it felt to, because of what your forefathers and foremothers were and what they did. You never broke the generational curse. You passed it right along through your blood. Okay. So the first thing that we do, we have to redeem the blood. Breaking the curses is one thing. Redemption is a much deeper thing. And in order to redeem the blood, we got to flush out the spirits that don't belong there. And particularly in your life, you have to be willing to flush out the disobedience and sin of your parents. In this, and in the moment that you do that, you become, guess what? The sacrifice. You become the Elohim. Remember I told you that there's Elohim, there's gods and goddesses, and then there's the Most High. If you take me right now, you put me in the middle of the most ignorant environment that you could imagine. You know, drop me, I hang glide down into the middle of it. What do you think I am in that environment? Throw me in an environment, bunch of teenage gangbangers that know nothing else but shooting and killing each other and making more dumb babies. What do you think I am in that environment? I'm God. I'm going to be God. I'm going to be Elohim inside of that space. You see? And I'm going to strive to be Elohim inside of that space. I'm going to strive to bring all of what the Creator is through me inside of that space. And they're going to see me as Elohim. They're going to see me as a God. Because truthfully, I will be a God to them. Maybe not the Most High God, but I will be their God. Because that's the difference between, or the distance between myself and them. You see? So in that moment, I can help to redeem, like we call it the kinsman's redeemer. I'll tell you that story one day. But these are my kin. These are my family. They may not be my nation, but they are my family. You see, we have our people and then we have our nation. And when we're really blessed, our people can be in our nation. Sometimes your nation may be comprised of foreign people. It is what it is. You know, we want everybody to transform, but it's great if your nation can be your people. That's awesome. You know, these hooligans are my people. You see, now if I can come amongst my people and redeem them, then in that moment, I'm the Elohim. And what will I begin to do in that moment? I will begin to recreate them in my image. And if I have a sister with me, I might, nudge her with my elbow and say, hey, let's make them in our image. Because there's brothers and sisters, there's female gangbanger-ettes, and there's male gangbangers. So we're going to recreate them. They're like animals now, but we're going to make a male and female man. So I might say, let's recreate them in our image. Male and female, we're going to create them. We might do that, right? I'm going to be Elohim in that moment. Well, there are moments and times, and I'm pretty sure for all of us, the time is now that we have to do that within our own bloodline. Because for many of us, we have, like I said, done the personal healing, but we haven't done the blood healing. You see? And the first place that begins is through renouncement. Renounce. Now, you've probably heard the word renounce before, like, I renounce you, and, whatever. I remember when, what's the name? The House or something. I don't know. It was one government body. I can't remember. But when they renounced, Khalid Muhammad, Dr. Khalid, back in the days. And, he was just giddy. He was like, yeah, that's a sign I'm doing the right thing. He was like, they renounced him and then they condemned him. I laughed too. I was like, good. That means we're getting some action now. Finally, we're getting some action, So that's where it has to begin. Now, what a renouncement is remember when I spoke earlier, whenever you see re, it speaks to going to a source. And more importantly, it's like a reversal, like reverse, I can verse, traverse, or I can reverse. I can announce or I can renounce. So when you renounce something, you're taking back something that you previously proclaimed. Now, you might be saying, Granddaddy was a sexual deviant, but I never co-signed that. You did co-sign it. It was already in your blood. It already took stake in your blood. And a lot of times you don't be realizing, I don't want to say nothing crazy, but this is why you might, like, your children may move, they move a little kind of way. Like, where that little movement came from, and you don't really check it. You know what I mean? A little holiday heart action kind of happening. You know what I mean? But yeah, I gotta be careful, hey, they on me. So I gotta be careful. But, my point I'm saying is that a lot of times there's things that we're pushing through the blood because we've never stood on righteousness. We even go amongst our blood family. We see some of the craziest things. We don't say anything. So in that moment, in our silence, we are actually proclaiming it as righteous. So we are invigorating that spirit inside of our bloodline, even if we're not the ones doing it. I've seen that so many times within our new. Somebody's gossiping or acting crazy, and then somebody will tell me on the side, like, yeah, whoop-de-whoop, and I'll say, why didn't you say something to the person? Oh, well, I ain't really want it. Right. You're a sucker. Get out my face. That's really what it is. You're a sucker. You scared to lose a friend. You scared somebody gonna be mad at you. You're a punk. Everybody's mad at me. I'm still living. You know what I mean? I ate breakfast today. I'm gonna eat dinner. Everything's all right. You know what I mean? It won't kill you if one person doesn't like you. You know what I mean? Get over it. But that's where the renouncement comes in. And of course, there's been a lot of caricatures made of that, especially in the melanin rich or melanin dominant community, where you got like the Bible thumpers and people running around wagging their finger and stuff like that. And that's the last thing we want to be, right? Wrong. That's what you need to be. Because in that, you're putting up a standard of what I don't tolerate. I remember years ago, I was working on a job and there was some guys who were just making certain jokes about women at the time. And I was sitting there working, and there was this one guy who, he walked away. He was like, well, I'm married, man. I appreciate my wife, man. I wouldn't do anything like that. And he stepped off. He wasn't with it, And I remember speaking to him later because he had saw a book on my desk when I came back from lunch. And, we started talking, and he told me, I was raised as a Mormon, and I still maintain those Mormon values. We were able to have a great talk about just where he came from and what's dear to him and what's important to him. But in that moment, cause even at the time I was like, this dude's, he's kind of square. Like, you don't have, they're talking about it, but he renounced it and put up that standard where he said, nah, that's not something that I'm allowing into my aura. Don't bring it around me. He was right. I was wrong. So that's an example of, and not that I was engaged in it, because the stuff they was talking about, like, we just got different standards for women, so it wasn't working anyway. Nice, tight, round. No, that's not what I want. I want big and gigantic and sloppy. You know what I mean? I'm working with different equipment. So you can get where I'm going with that. But so the point is, yeah, that's how it is. Some people, their equipment can't really reach it to. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. So, so the thing is, the idea of being able to submit those spirits of your foreparents comes through renouncement. It comes through renouncement. You see, and it's a deep thing, and I'm gonna tell you why it's deep. Because when you start working with the Creator to clean up your bloodline, sometimes what we strive to do is to have it cleaned in a way that we're most comfortable. Right? So that's the whispering and the DMing. What if you need to be exposed in front of everybody? What if the Creator does it that way? Would you accept it? Are you okay with being called out in front of everyone, or does your correction need to be done in private, secretly? You see, and when you have that level of pride, you never make it. You remember, one atom of pride, and you will not enter into the weight of one atom of pride. You will not enter into paradise, because I hate the proud. I do not love the proud or the arrogant. Right? You think about how many people leave organizations, leave churches, leave temples because they were called out on their mess. That's it. Nothing more than just that. You got called out for something that you were clearly doing, but they will not accept it. I can't tell you how many times I've been in situations with people where they've done stuff publicly, but want to apologize privately. You see, and you think about it. When you're working with the Creator, you tell the Creator that you want to be a different person. You want to be a changed person, but you tell the Creator how you want it to come. So you're walking contrary to the Creator. So based on what I read earlier, what do you think the Creator does in that moment? Walks contrary to you. All right, you want to do it that? Well, you go do it that way. I'm over here though. We over here doing this. You see? And some of us may, because we're made from the same DNA, we may mirror that at times. You may be in a relationship with someone and they just refuse to speak to you respectfully. So you say, you know what? Until you can talk to me like you got some sense, don't talk to me at all. I'm not going to speak to you. Right? So we're not going to do this on your terms. That's one of the key things of what we're speaking about. Our inability to see that aligning ourselves with, and most of the times it is because of our alignment with social values, secular values, that we have this false sense of self, this false sense of pride. And when you come into an environment like this, or a spiritual environment, it's hard to imagine that those things that you've been proud about don't mean anything here. And you're still trying to rest on those laurels, but it's not allowed. It just doesn't work. And then that's what causes a lot of the shrieking back. People go into the shadows. Well, I don't like to talk much. Well, I'm quiet. You ain't quiet. You talk all the time. You see? You just, exactly, Brother Zach. You know, you just don't want to be exposed in front of everyone. But maybe that's the way it has to happen in order for it to be clean from your bloodline. I'm going to show you another thing that gets caught up in the blood that you a lot of times skip over. Sometimes you hear preachers and different online spiritualists talk about soul ties, right? You get into a relationship with somebody and, you know, from all the banging out, your souls intertwine with each other, right? Now that's a complete load of crap. You know, I don't care how much you bang out with somebody, you cannot wrap your soul around another person's soul. It's impossible, because you cannot do a damn thing to your soul. You can't. Moses saw the backside of his soul and turned into a batala. Everything turned white, his face, everything. He just saw the shadow of his soul. So what do you really think you could do with just, you know, it's just, it sounds cool. You know what I mean? My twin flame. So, you know, just shut the heck up. You know, people just make up stuff because everybody wants to have the new thing for their age. You know, you can entwine spirits. You can do that all day. You can make different spiritual combinations. You can perform spiritual alchemy all day and night. Absolutely. We do it all the time. You know, we mix animals with this and with ethereal beings, and we mix astral beings with nature spirits. We do that a lot, right? And then we create all kind of spiritual abominations. But here's the thing about the ties. Through your spirit ties and through the blood that runs through your spirit, right? Or the spirit that runs through your blood, you can take on, just like you could take on the genetics of your partner. You see people together for a long time, they start to look alike. And they begin to act alike. You even see that with people's pets a lot of times. You know, you can take on the spiritual calamity and karma of your partner. So what does that mean? When you are breaking generational curses, you're not only breaking, or should be breaking, the curses of your forefathers and foremothers, but also of your partner's forefathers and foremothers. You have to redeem that spirit as well. Now, some of you may say, my current partner? No, all your partners. Yeah, count back. I know, you know, you may need the biscuits for some of y'all. The fingers ain't gonna do it. You gotta use that new math. You know, so, but that's what it is. I know it's rough, but you know, when nobody teaches us this early on, we make a lot of mess, you know. So it's like when you hear me say it now, it's like, well, that's impossible. How can I go back, 75 people? That's why I stopped counting. Well, you're not supposed to sleep with 75 people, unless they're your wives and concubines, So, but each person, their karma and their curses become your curses. So again, sometimes you may find there's a consistent instability in your life. You're not able to get things happening. You're not able to get things moving because you're not counting all of the different curses that are still walking with you. You might have been with someone before and found out later that they abused somebody in their life. And you say, man, maybe you might even break up with them when you find that out. Say, man, that's rough, and I hope they find their way. I'm going to pray for them. You don't realize now that you have the spirit of an abuser inside of you. You see? So now you may have a child going forward. Your child goes and abuses somebody. You're saying, where the heck did that come from? You see? That's what was in your blood. So it's not just the healing for ourselves. A lot of times, unfortunately, in the spirit community, we jump headfirst into wanting to do work. I have this talent. I have this gift. Let me at him, coach. Put me in. Right? And we jump onto the field. It's like, it's like a young girl who, has her first menses and doesn't understand what it is, and she wants to jump on the court and play volleyball, and she's, dripping blood all over the place. A lot of us are running around like that. We got these open wounds and gashes, and we calling ourselves working with people and healing people, and we're just bleeding all on top of it. Because we haven't actually done the healing work. We want to go out and do the magic work and the spiritual work. And then when when I start talking about the healing work, people get a little annoyed. That's not really what I'm not here for that. I'm here because I was told I was a great healer, or I'm a great diviner. You ain't nothing until you heal. None of that stuff matters. We all have gifts. And then after you heal, then you got to go and redeem your blood. You got to do all of that before you do anything else. Because you'll notice that you'll be able to intake a lot of information, but you won't be able to do anything with it. You'll never be able to launch into anything because you have the instability of cursed blood. The instability of a cursed line. And that renouncement means a separation that most of us are not ready for. Even in the physical, on our blood families, how many of us have renounced our blood family because of what they do? How many of you got to kill a cousin and you told that cousin, look, man, I know we grew up together from the sandbox and all that, but you're dead to me. You out here, killing people and making victims, you're dead to me. How many have done that, right? A lot of us would just say, well, my killer cousin's over there, I'm over here. It is what it is. Like, you do your thing, I'm over here doing my thing. Just don't bring that to my house. You see? So in that, remember what a renouncement is. It's taking back what you already announced. If you don't renounce it, you've proclaimed it. Because there's a reason why you have the attachment. There's a reason why these people come into your life. Because you drew them in. Because they're a part of you. That's the beauty of the physical world. We get all this evidence of what we really are. You see, a lot of my friends are criminals. You know what I mean? So at some point, you got to be honest, And I remember thinking that years ago, I was teaching this class, this Microsoft certification class. And I had this young man in my class. He had just come home from doing like 9 years. And real cool dude. I liked him. He was a boxer. And one day after class, he was talking to me about something, and he said, you think like a criminal. And I'm like, who are you to tell me I think like a criminal? You just came home from doing a decade in jail. I've been here. You know what I'm saying? I've been out here. Free. And he was like, yo, you think just like a criminal. But those are the signs that the Most High sometimes brings to you. Like, yeah, you got some stuff you got to clean up, man. There's a reason why, you got all these. You may not be engaged in those activities. You may not even outwardly promote those activities, but why are all your friends from the sandbox on up all jailbirds? There's something in you, and of course I know it. It's in my bloodline. That's a whole long story that y'all don't need to hear, but that outlaw spirit has always been in my blood, right? So that's something that had to be renounced. It was something that was joked about at one point, and played with, and I always know I can take it there. If it this, that, and the third, it's causing instability. You see? So these are the things that you have to start looking at. And in that moment, you become the Messiah because you render yourself as a sacrifice to your line. I'm going to take on all of your crap, and then I'm going to flush it out through me so it stops with me and it doesn't extend further. All right. Now I'm going to give you one more thing, and then I'm going to close out. I'm going to try to shorten it a little bit. Isaiah, the 47th chapter. And yeah, I'll do it like this. I'll read some of it. I'm going to break some of it down, not too much. Starting at the first. Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans. for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. Take the millstone and grindmill, uncover thy locks, make bare the leg, uncover the thigh, pass over the rivers. Thy nakedness, write down nakedness, important. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. Or will not meet as a man. Our Redeemer, the Lord of hosts, his name, the Holy One of Israel, sit thou silent, and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. I was wroth with my people. I have polluted my inheritance and given them into thine hand, and thou didst show thou them no mercy upon the ancient hast thou very heavily laid thy yoke. And thou saidest, I shall be lady forever, so that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart, neither didst remember the latter end of it. Therefore hear now this, thou art given to pleasures, thou dwellest carelessly, thou sayest in thine heart, I am, and none else besides me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. But these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day, the loss of children and widowhood. They shall come upon thee in their perfection for the multitude of thy sorceries and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. For thou hast trusted thy wickedness. Thou hast said, none seeth me. Thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it hath perverted thee. And thou hast said unto thine heart, I am, and none else besides me. Okay, there's a lot more, but I'm going to stop it there. I would urge you to read that particular verse. Now, what this is speaking about, when the Chaldeans are being referenced, the Chaldeans were like they were the elitist group of Babylonian culture. You know, they were like the aristocrats, you know, of that particular culture. So in this particular of that Babylonian empire, so in this particular passage, what he's saying is that, you know, he's saying that you will be the elite or the high will be falling down to the dust. They're going to fall down to the dust. Now, why are they going to fall down to the dust? And you know, in that sense, Isaiah, you know, or Yeshaya is picturing Babylon as like a queen who has like lost her throne. She's been, as they say, deposed, you know, from her throne. And now she, instead of all the beauty and the, you know, the splendor of her kingdom, she now sits in the dust. And when uncovering the locks and going to the millstones, like now you're going to have to go do the work that a slave would have done. And the concept of, thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. What that's saying is it's talking about the men of Babylonian culture. And it's saying that you will be exposed. Your nakedness is saying that you will have nothing to hide your sin. You see, and I will not meet you as a man, meaning that you will no longer have the status of a man that maybe was undeserved. You think about within this culture, you know, fathers are called Baba or Abba, you know, mothers are called Mama or Iya, Ima, right? Different words that we know for mother, Mama, you know, but that's a recognition of something that technically we're not required to recognize you as, you know, it's a contractual thing, number one. But number two, like I said, if there's no Baba, you ain't no mama anyway, right? So it is what it is, right? So the thing is, he's saying in that moment, I'm going to expose the truth of what it really is, right? Like I said, once people are out of I don't have to play those games anymore. You just get called by your first name, right? Because you're exposed. You see, so you no longer have that covering of your crap. Like we know the crap is there under your robes, but but we're giving you some time to get it right. But this speaks about a time when Babylon falls, right? And Babylon is, you think about, again, the secular world. So when our pride is embedded in the concepts that we have around the secular world, you know, I got my own car, got my own place, got my own job, got my own business, you know, whatever it is, my investments, these different things that we stick our chest out and straighten our spine about. Yeshaya is speaking about a time when that falls, right? So the things that you have now committed yourself and aligned yourself to and become congruent with in order to find your pride in, those things are now gone. You see? And this is a prophecy, you know, for those who are committed to Babylon. Again, very common in the culture community. I want to be conscious and woke, but at the same time, you know, I want to be bougie. I want to be a Tom. I want to be a Thomasina. You know, I want it all. Okay, cool. Well, one half of you is going to fall down to the dirt. You know, what you've invested in over there, that's going to fall. You know, so if you find your pride there, then you're kind of basing yourself on something that is worthless, right? Now, the nakedness is an important thing. You have to ask yourself, and this is individual for all of you, who's willing to lay naked? You see, and just say, you know what, whatever it is, you know, Most High, just deal with it, please. Whatever it is, whatever's messed up in me, however it has to be, however I have to be made naked, whether it's in the privacy of my own home or whether it's in the group of my community and the assemblage of my community, whatever it is, make me naked now. Let me deal with it now. You know, and there may be some things that you may have in you that you may not see because they're generational. Like the brother saying, you think like a criminal. Yeah, well, you know, I got to pull out the family tree, you know, and you'd understand, you know, even though I'm here teaching, I'm functioning in the capacity of a teacher, daishiki on, head wrap at the time, you know what I mean? Locks, you know, drinking green juice, coming back from lunch with my green drink. All right, students, let's, you know, this dude's a criminal. You know, forget all that daishiki and all that. He's a criminal, you know. So sometimes there are things that are working through you that you may not necessarily be manifesting outwardly, but the spirit can be recognized. And are you willing to be stripped naked? You know, and that requires the humbling, which it speaks about later in that particular passage, which you also see a lot, you know, even in Islam. You know, when we speak about, you know, the temptations of Shaitan, you know, your greatest defense against those temptations is your humility. Your humility is your earth, being able to get down to the earth, to get down to the ground and kind of separate yourself from your selfish desires. You see? And sometimes those selfish desires are based around, again, how you feel you should be used. But that's Shaitan speaking. Hey, man, I'm made of fire. If anything, they should be worshiping me. You know, like that's just earth. There's a bunch of that. Fire is a great mystery. You know what I mean? I'm the Grimaldi man. You know, I came with, there's fire here. You know what I mean? You got me worshiping these golems, you know, and sometimes that's how we move through the world with that same kind of spirit. And then we get caught up and then we get removed from paradise. And everything that we're doing is practice. Your experience in Anu is practice for paradise. There's some people who are too prideful to be here. That's the only thing that keeps you out. If you think about it, if you think about anyone who was here and is not here, who didn't make it in, just really think hard about why it didn't happen for them. And you're going to find it's been the same thing every time. Pride. People can't be corrected. You know, people are unwilling to be naked. You call them out on their stuff All right, come on, we pull these clothes off. Let's deal with it. Let's flush out these curses that are active in your system. But haughtiness, thinks that you're raised up above everybody else. That's why it's so sickening. You see? And your mind, your pride says, I'm haughty, I'm high, right? And there's scriptures around that with women too, but I didn't want to get into that too much right now. But that's all I wanted to address with you. I know it was a longer piece, but it's foundational. If you don't start acknowledging, confessing, and being specific about what's in your blood, you're never gonna make it in. You're not gonna make it in. Plain and simple. And some things are close to you, some things are further away. If you're single and you had messed up partners, you think about what was messed up about them. Because whatever was messed up about them is yours now, if you lay down with them. And those are the things that need to be renounced, because sometimes that's the reason why you still have such a strong, vehement aversion to it, because it's still alive in you. I can't stand people like that. That's like my ex was just like that. No, you're just like that now. It's dormant in your system. You're a carrier, you see, and it will come out. If it doesn't come out in your children, you'll spread it to someone else. You may spread it to your next sexual partner. You'll transmit that spiritual disease. So those things need to be renounced. And some things, like I said, some things will be brought out publicly. And that's where the love between us all has to be. I spoke about that recently. Can we call each other out? Or does your pride say, no, I've already seen myself as higher and better than you, so you can't say nothing to me, even if I don't say it. I'm not willing to be healed like this. I'm going to dictate how my healing is. Well, that's contrary to the Creator. So the Creator will now walk contrary to you. All right. So that's all I wanted to share, and I'll give it back over to, Master of Ceremonies. They say in the Masonic Lodge.
I don't know why I just felt like saying that's good, Chief. Come on with it. Come on with it. I'm telling you, it made me reflect on myself. It made me reflect on. So I see that, but it's just really difficult to separate that line when I feel like I'm being unjustly analyzed, I guess, or criticized. So I just wanted to know, like, have you felt that to a degree? How much does it bother you? How do you deal with that? Thank you.
Sure, absolutely, brother. So the only times that I can say that I experience that is when I put myself in the jurisdiction of people who I shouldn't be in the jurisdiction of, right? So if I'm in a situation where I have Western law enforcement or policy agents in front of me, they're perceiving me as a way that I don't feel they should. I might have a 25-year-old cop standing in front of me, making demands, but internally I feel like you're a boy. I smack the taste out your mouth. To be talking to me like that. I'm your elder. I'm old enough to be your father. So that's a situation where jurisdiction, when I put myself inside of someone else's jurisdiction, then a lot of times I now make myself vulnerable to their analysis and their diagnosis. But if I'm staying within my own temple, I rule. So what it is that I need to express or how I need to express it is based upon my own structure, my own matrix. A great example would be this. Who could you compare Old Dirty Bastard with? Could you say Old Dirty Bastard is better than LL Cool J? No. Because Old Dirty Bastard existed within his own jurisdiction and never left it. He existed within his own sphere. There is no comparison. You can only compare him with what he did before and what he did before he died. But there's no, now, if you put him in an MC battle against King Los or Cannabis, back in those, yeah, it might have been an issue because he stepped outside of his jurisdiction. You see, so a lot of times we will have trouble expressing ourselves as you're speaking of, because we're trying to use an alien's language and we're trying to speak inside of their grid and inside of their matrix. So we have to rewire our programming for that moment, or we may have already updated our internal software and now we have to downgrade to have a certain talk. If I go into a court where a supposed magistrate has jurisdiction, I would fare best if I called him Your Honor. But I know that that's illegal to use a term of nobility. Now I know that. So now if I'm in that space and I have to refer to this person, I have to think about what I'm going to say that's going to yield the best outcome, while at the same time trying not to violate my internal cognitive matrix, which will cause a hesitation, because now I doubt myself in this space. You see? So it's about jurisdiction. You have to build your life in a way where you could stay where where you want to be. Again, using Old Dirty as the example. Even when he was in, what was it? Paper Soldiers, I think. No, not Paper Soldiers. I don't remember, but the one with Beanie Siegel, who was in part 2, where he was flipping burgers. He still played himself. He was picking his nose. He was like, "You want a burger? I just made it myself." Like he was doing what Old Dirty would have probably really done in real life. So no matter what the opportunity was, a space that he was brought into, even when it was the MTV Awards and he got on stage and, Wu-Tang for the children, like, I'm Old Dirty no matter where I'm at. I might be drunk, I might be high, who knows, because I'm Old Dirty Bastard, right? So there's a boldness in that you have to make a decision about, who is Utu, and who is Utu regardless of, despite where I'm at, not because of where I'm at. Because Utu can express himself with clarity, more clarity than the average person. You see? So what is it that I'm doing that's bombarding my system and putting me in an environment where I now have to try to figure out to be something in someone other than Utu, which is now causing the issue? That's what it is, man. You have to, and you're at the age now where you should be thinking jurisdiction, empire, kingdom anyway. That's where your mind should be. You know what I mean? Think about anything that you might do that might put you in someone else's jurisdiction, and don't do it.
So you keep reading out the book if you like, and this is not a specific thing. I'm just using it as an example. But what's more important is that the toxic food that I've eaten by way of sex or food or just bloodline has to kind of get out in order for me and mine and us, right? If it's a us, to be better. So no question. That was just what I wanted to share.
Well, that was a great share, because that concern has come up before. And it's one of the reasons why I tend to be really vigilant about who's here, right? Because I want the environment to feel safe, to be safe, not just feel safe, but to actually be safe, and because of the intensity of what we share and what we do, there will be moments when people's stuff comes to the surface, and until you get strong enough, you need to be in an environment that feels nurturing enough that your stuff can come to the surface, and that it won't be exploited. People are not just bringing your stuff to the surface to rock your foundations. Sometimes people do that very cruelly with truth. They'll tell the truth, but they'll do it only to dislodge you, which is very cruel. But that is an important point. Are we safe enough to really share where we're at? And is everyone coming with the same level of integrity? No, they're not. Some people change. Some people grow into that. Some people never get it. It's the reason why the numbers stay relatively small, which I'm cool with. It's the quality of participant. But you're going to see, for instance, in March, when we bring in more people, it's going to be a bunch of phonies. You're going to see that. And through time, you'll be able to spot them yourself. You'll be able to look at a person. You'll know, like, I give them 2 months, or the first time they get called out, they're out of here. You'll be able to see it yourself. Now, does that mean that you should be any different? No, because you look at the term nakedness or naked. In Hebrew, it's arum, right? And, it means bare, of course, naked. And it's very similar to the Hebraic word arum. So one would be like arom, while the other would be arum. When it speaks about Adam and Chava, or who as Eve, but Chava, Adam and Chava, and the Torah, when it speaks about their nakedness, the word arum is used, right? But when it speaks about the serpent's cunningness and slyness, arum is used. So you see that there's a very close connection between being cunning and being naked. And nakedness is truth, is being truthful, right? Whereas the serpent was cunning. He kind of told the truth, kind of didn't, he played with it a little bit, right? And then as a result, where initially they were fine with their truth, when they ate of the fruit, they now felt what we call bufsh, which is the Hebraic word for shame that was used there, right? And what that means, even through symbol, through form, is it's the idea of being connected to a stake or a stick that is bringing down or destroying the house. Okay, that's the idea of shame there. So when you feel that shame, you are connected to the destroyer. That's the problem. You see? So there are some people who you may come with naked truth, and they may respond in this environment with cunning. I'm going to tell just a little bit or just enough, or I'm going to use certain, phrases that make it seem like I'm sincere, but I'm not really sincere. But the reality is it doesn't matter whom you confess with. If you slowly slip into their way of being, you now become cunning. You take on arum. And then what follows that is the shame that you didn't have before. So now if I use cunning and say the first statement, then there's shame later. I'm destroying the house. I'm destroying this house by not being honest. And I feel the shame of it. Because the house of trust that we're building between us, I know I'm actually secretly destroying it. Now I'm ashamed. Because I've broken the covenant of truth between us. That's why he had to ask, where are you? What are you doing? I'm hiding in the bushes because I'm ashamed because I ate of the fruit. I'm naked. You see? But if I'm truthful all the way through, despite what someone else is doing and their cunningness, then I can always still feel comfortable in my truth and in my nakedness and in my bareness. That's the key. Now, my job is to try to get the serpents from around you as best I can. There's always going to be some, not always. I shouldn't say that. There will be for a while, right? So I try not to, I guess this is what I talked about recently when I had to confess, like, yeah, I have kind of thrown y'all to vipers at times just to see who's tough enough, you know, and I had to repent of that. I can't keep doing that. I got to stop. We don't have time for those games anymore, you know. So my job is to try to get all the serpents from out of the garden. But the truth is, that procedure and experience of Adom and Shava is just life. It's going to happen. It's, you know, when we hear about the Creator being the same yesterday, today, and forevermore, what that's a reference to is the cyclical concept of time. Time is not linear. So that means the story of Adom and Kava is still happening today. It's not an ancient story. It's a today story. It's going to happen tomorrow. You see, you're going to be tempted by a serpent tomorrow, you know, and the day after that, the day after that, the day after that, the day after that. And you're going to be given the choice as to what you're going to do. And you may use cunning, you see, or you may just be truthful in who and what you are and maintain your connection to the Creator as a result, and screw the rest. Hey, well, you do what you do. All right, this is what it is. This is what I was told. This is what I'm going to do, period. And that within itself is endearing. One of my children is like that. I used to always, when she was very young, she'd be playing in the yard with other children. And I swear it was like Bobby Boucher. Because every other second, Baba said, Baba said, Baba said, Baba said. That's all you would hear. Let's go over there. Baba said, dude, Baba said. You know, and then she come in the house. Baba, I told them what you said, and they doing what they want to do. You know, but that's my baby, right? I was even more endeared to that child because of their willingness to carry on the instructions, regardless of what everybody else is doing. I remember one time we were at when I used to have the temple at a nature center, the one of the original Anu temples, and we were having temple service. And during such, there was a time, you know, the children. I had someone who would watch the children, and then the rest of us adults would be inside, going, you know, doing our thing. And I remember a sister coming back to me later that day saying, you know, your child is something special. And I was like, yeah, I know, you know. He was like, no, but the children were outside and they wanted to throw rocks. There were turtles in the pond outside. They wanted to throw rocks at the turtle. And your child was saying, no, that's not what we do. Like, that was the phrase. This was like at maybe 5 years old or 5, somewhere around there. That's not what we do. Right? So, again, endeared me even more. Like, I'm not gonna, you know, be like y'all. I could come back in and lie about it. Tell partner, I wouldn't do it, you know, but I'm gonna maintain my truth and make myself naked and bare in that moment, because in that moment I'm showing that what my father says is what it is. And you could feel however you want about it, but this is what it is. You know, so that naked and that cunning is they go hand in hand. It's a thin line of how you can slip, and then what follows again, like I said, after that is shame. And then what people do, and in response to that shame, is narcissism and arrogance, and you know, you're gonna stay away from my shame. Basically, I'm gonna keep you scared off of it, you know. Or they go run and hide. Another common one, they hide in the bushes. Where are you? You know, they start well, I'm gonna pull back from my new. That's when you start hearing that. I'm going to pull back because I need to focus on this. You in the bushes because you were ashamed, because you were being cunning. That's all. Yeah. All right. I'll let y'all keep going.
Thank you.